Y'all, it's your boy Easy, and on today's episode of Easy Opens, we're going to be taking a look at the Neca Ultimate Sesame Street Count Von Count figure.
Count Von Count was created by Norman Stiles. He made his first appearance on Sesame Street in the fourth season premiere episode Gordon and Susan Meet Sam the Robot from November 13th of 1972. He's a Romanian male Muppet vampire meant to be a parody of Bela Lugosi's Count Dracula. He and members of his family have limited weather manipulation abilities with a cloud hanging over him. Count lives in a castle, drives a car called the Countmobile, has many girlfriends, and used to have hypnotic powers. These boxes are fantastic. I absolutely love these boxes. They're so cool. But we are not here to talk about the boxes. So let's go ahead and get this figure free from its plastic prison and see what we think about Count Von Count. All right, y'all, fresh out the box, I am absolutely taken with this figure. This is so exciting for me. Like it's so surreal how well Neca has managed to apply paint and sculpt and make these figures come to life in plastic form to the point to where I'm looking at this thing waiting for it to talk to me, and teach me to count. Like that's how life, you know what I mean? Like how much life Neca puts into these characters and these figures. And the Count is no exception. He looks amazing. You can see and feel the texture on his skin. It looks so cool and really helps to bring the figure to life in the sense that, you can tell it's a Muppet. The eyes and then the eyebrows. The eyebrows are attached to the nose and they're sturdy still, but they're not really oh my goodness, this is so cool. And then the monocle, the way the monocle is just kind of attached to the nose. The nose is doing a lot of work here, let's just say that. But oh my goodness, the face sculpt is just so good. Oh, I love this so much. And then the rest of the figure looks amazing as well. I gotta admit, it's always a little jarring seeing the lower half of these Muppets because, you're generally not used to seeing that. The suit looks so cool. Again, it's got its own sort of texture to it, that you can feel. But my favorite part is the folds in the buttons. How the buttons are shiny and they look like a different plastic altogether. That just helps to make this figure pop even more. But then the fact that all of the folds are kind of going to there, the suit's a little tight, a little bit, that just adds so much life to this figure because the light hits it and creates shadows. And it's just such an awesome, subtle way to bring a character or to bring a figure to life. The pants also have a bunch of folds in them, so that's really cool. And then the shoes look really awesome. Now, I would probably have preferred if the toes were shiny, maybe. That would have been kind of like a cool little extra step, pardon the pun, but they're not shiny, but I would have liked for them to maybe have had a similar shine that the buttons have. That would have probably put the figure a little bit more over the top for me, but that's a minor thing. The shoes still look really cool. There's a lot of detail in them. They've got some folds, and the buttons on the shoes seem to have that same kind of shininess that the buttons do on the jacket as well, which is awesome. And yeah, big fan of the way that they've been handling the shoes in this line. The cape, though, we got to talk about the cape. The cape is fantastic. First of all, bendy wire. Just stop with the plastic capes. Give us the cloth bendy wire capes. We will pay the extra money. They're always the superior option, in my opinion. And Count Von Count's cape is awesome. It looks so gaudy and is so cool. And the material is pretty neat. And it just adds a really cool dynamic to this figure that I often forget about. I often forget he has a cape. And so, yeah, no, I am very happy with this. And so, yeah, fresh out the box, I'm very enamored with this character and this line in general. So, yeah, no, Neca's done a great job here. The Count comes with 2 interchangeable heads, 7 interchangeable hands, a telephone, a candelabra, and the character number 2.
All right, now let's take a look at the articulation you're going to get out of the Count. So starting at the head, you've got 360 at the neck. He can look up a decent amount and down, not really down at all, really. But you do get some excellent side-to-side motion there. And so he's got a pretty decent range of motion in his head, with the exception of looking down necessarily. But other than that, everything else is pretty cool. Then moving on to the shoulder, you have 360 at the shoulder, and it can come out just a little bit. There is a joint there, but it is impeded a little bit. I'm not entirely sure by what. I think the top of his jacket, but it doesn't go up any higher than that. But again, 360 there. You also have a 360 joint, or I guess swivel, at the elbow, and it has, I forget what these are called. It's kind of like it feels like double jointed elbows, but it's not quite that. But you can see what I'm doing here. I guess because the swivel there also kind of helps to make up for it. See if I can get that in a better light. But yeah, he's got a pretty decent range of motion in his elbow. Then he's got 360 at the wrist, as well as a joint there in the hand. And then not a whole lot of articulation in the chest area. It feels like there is some there, as if like this is like a basic buck that they use, but his jacket does, or whatever you want to call this, his suit kind of impedes it. So you can't really get a lot of action there. At the waist, you can get 360, but it is impeded a little bit by his jacket, but you can still do it like you just saw. But yeah, that's pretty much it. He's got some side-to-side movement there too, so he can wiggle a little bit, but there's not a lot of stuff you can do there because of the jacket. Then not really great split range, but again, the top part of the jacket kind of hinders that. However, the figure, it does allow for it if you needed to cut that for some reason, but I don't know why you'd need to make the Count do a split. But he's got a thigh swivel that is, I don't know if you could see it in there really, but yeah, I can't really get the lighting in there, but he does have a thigh swivel, and it's on a ball joint as well, so there's plenty of good motion in the thigh and the leg, crotch area. He's got the same articulation in the knee that he does in the in his elbow, and so that's pretty cool. Get some good motion there, side to side, front to back, all that kind of stuff. And then he's got an ankle rocker 360 at the ankle. And if I'm not mistaken, that is all the articulation that you're going to get out of the Count.
So I tried to find an accurate source for the height and weight of these characters, like on the show or whatever. The only thing I could find was that Big Bird stands at 8 foot 2 inches tall. And so with that being a definitive thing, I think Bert is probably somewhere in the 5'10" to 6 foot tall area. And then Ernie is somewhere in the 5'5", 5 foot area. And I think the Count is probably somewhere also in that 5 foot to 5'5" area. Don't quote me on that. That's just kind of my assessment. However, this figure stands just shy of 6 inches tall and weighs a little over 5 ounces. So now let's take a look and see how he measures up to some other figures you might have in your collection. Here he is next to Neca's Alf and Figma's Link. Here he is next to Marvel Legends Wolverine and Neca's Return to New York Donatello. Here he is with SH Figuarts and Kocho Seiho Kamen Rider Kuga and Hasbro's G.I. Joe Classified Sergeant Slaughter. Here he is with Jada Toys Street Fighter Dhalsim and Mattel's Masterverse Skeletor. Here he is with Jada Toys Mega Man Cutman and Jazzware's Fortnite Beef Boss. Here he is with McFarlane's DC Multiverse Corrupted Superman and Super 7's Donatello. Here he is with the DC Direct Killer Croc and Marvel Select Hulk. Here he is with the Palisades Adventure Kermit. And here he is with the NECA Sesame Street Bert and Ernie. So I consider myself to be a pretty big Muppets fan, and Sesame Street is definitely included in that fandom, at least in my opinion. And out of all of the characters, I always really loved the Count. The gimmick is fantastic and endlessly entertaining to me, but I've always been a fan of dark imagery and juxtaposing it with humor, and the Count is a perfect summation of all of that. So I was super stoked when they announced that he was going to be one of the first figures released in this line, and I am not disappointed. NECA nailed this figure, in my opinion, and I just think they did a fantastic job here. The look is 100% on point. Like, he absolutely looks just like the character on the show. And you can't really ask for much more than that, but NECA brings the detail with their figures. And so this figure of the Count has a ton of detail in this suit. Not only does it have a tactile texture that is different, but it also has these ripples and folds where the buttons and the pants are and everything. Just brings this figure to life in the way that the light hits it and creates shadows and depth, and I don't know, it just looks really, really cool. And then add to that the fact that his cape is really nice, and it's got a bendy wire, which is like leaps and bounds better than a plastic cape. Just not even a comparison. Like, a bendy wire is the way to go. And this is really cool. This cape is great, and the material pattern on the inside is really awesome. I never really paid attention to it until this figure, and now I can't not see it. And so that's really neat. And I love how kind of gaudy it is. Like, it just seems kind of like over the top, and I absolutely love that. And yeah, this figure just looks so good. They captured the face and the mannerisms of the Count, and it's just awesome. And the way that they did the monocle, excellent work. Now, as far as the accessories, he comes with a ton of hands, which are awesome. And he's got his counting hands, which is even better. I love that. And the phone and the candelabra are great because I love that they're accessories that he works well with, but also you can just put them in your collection and just have them in your drawer of things to add to a scene if you needed them for whatever reason. But my favorite accessory is the number 2 with the eyes. I don't know. I've just gotten so much mileage out of the letter and number characters that these figures come with, because they make it to where whatever scene you're shooting with these figures, it makes it feel like it's an episode of Sesame Street. And I absolutely love that, which either makes it more absurd or actually, no, I just think it always just makes it absurd, at least in my experience. But regardless, it accentuates the entire experience, and I thoroughly enjoy that, and am very happy that they're including these letter and number characters with these figures, and I hope that continues throughout the line. Oh, and then I should mention that across the board so far, I've had issue switching the heads on these figures, especially the open mouth head, because trying to get it to snap into the joint into the head, it doesn't allow for a lot of pressure to be applied. Whereas like if you just had like, I don't know, for lack of a better example, like a Marvel Legends head where you're switching it and it's just a slight little open mouth, but the majority of the head is like still there. There's a lot more to apply pressure to than there is when a majority of the mouth is like empty because it's open, like on these figures. So bear that in mind. When you're switching heads, do whatever you got to do to try to like, heat it up or whatever method you prefer. I believe that I was trying the blow dryer method and I still had issue with it, but just keep that in mind, especially with the Count because of his monocle. So you don't want your hand to slip and then knock the monocle off, which would be very disappointing and frustrating. So just keep that in mind. But the look on the faces are just excellent. And I am just very happy with what they gave us with the different head sculpts. And yeah, as far as playability and poseability, kind of like I mentioned with the letter people and everything like that, these characters in general just work so well with any environment that I put them in. And I think that's inherent to the fact that the characters' TV shows were a mixed media kind of TV show where you could have cartoons and them show up in it. You could have them interacting with animated characters. And then for the most part, you had them interacting with real human beings on the show. And that knowledge absolutely helps to blur the lines of different action figure lines, so that if you have a bunch of NECA live action, like human characters, you can have them work with these Sesame Street characters. If you got a bunch of your Marvel and DC figures, you can probably have them work pretty well with them as well. The Ninja Turtles could go well with them. They work well with some of the Pokemon figures. There's a wide range of action figures you could use with them. So much so that I think that you would be more hard-pressed to find a line of action figures that do not work well with these Sesame Street figures. I will say that the Count has probably been the figure that I've had a little bit of difficulty moving around, because I'm scared to break the collar on the cape as well as the attachments to the wrist. So I'm a little apprehensive about moving it around too much. And, that's the risk you take with some of these figures. It's like you sacrifice the playability for the look. And I still think NECA did the right call here and kind of called it down the middle, because you can do all this cool stuff with it, but you just got to be extra careful with it. And for the way that I play and pose my figures, it's a little bit cumbersome for me, but your mileage may vary here. So overall, I am an absolutely huge fan of this line so far, and am eagerly anticipating the next releases, and am pretty much all in on this line. And yeah, they're a ton of fun. So if you're on the fence about these figures, I'll just say right now, just go ahead and do it. Start with one of them. Well, you can't really just get Bert and Ernie without Ernie. So I would say if you're on the fence about these figures, I'd say maybe start with the Count, because he does a lot of the same stuff that Bert and Ernie do, except that you can't just get Bert without Ernie. So I understand that there's that, but like as far as the three that are out right now, go with the Count, see if you like it. And if you do, chances are you're really going to like Bert and Ernie, and so that's probably a good barometer. Otherwise, if you're a Muppet Sesame Street collector, then this figure's a must-have. If not just for the figure, the box as well. Like, yeah, it's great. If you're a collector of vampire-type characters, I believe the Count counts. If you have a shelf of figures dedicated to characters with a monocle, then the Count will definitely fit right in there. Or if you collect famous spooky TV icons, then you absolutely need and will not be disappointed with NECA's Count Von Count. All right, that's going to do it for me today. Thanks so much for watching. If you liked what you saw, hit the like button. If you want to see more from me, hit subscribe, and let me know in the comments, what's your favorite Count skit? I mean, I like the one where they bleep out the words because it makes him sound like he's saying terrible things. I don't know. There's something about that was funny to me. Maybe it's juvenile. Who knows? What's your favorite fictional vampire? Let me know in the comments. And until then, else time.